Welcome to the Outlaws podcast. This is Ryan, and today I'm joined by Ben. We're here to do a post-draft interview as we're going to try to narrow down each team one by one as we count down to the regular season. Ben, I just want to know, what were your thoughts on draft day? Just the whole experience with everybody over at Nick's house. How did you enjoy it?
I had a great time. A little bummed out that, we started, I think we were going to have 8 people, and it eventually turned into 5, but, I had a merry, jolly old good time. What about you?
Yeah, I had a good time as well. I was definitely a little upset. Nothing on Nick's end. I mean, that what he provided with the food and the atmosphere, all that was great, but I was looking forward to seeing Michael there for sure. And I know that he got a flat tire, couldn't make it, so that was kind of a bummer. And of course, we were all hoping that Big Ben would be there too. Jordan didn't show up. Adam didn't show up in person, and he only showed up for half of the draft. So some of those factors took a little bit out of what it could have been. So.
That's true. I don't know. I had a pretty good time. I thought Nick did a good job. It was pretty lively and jolly for only 5 people being there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I have to admit, I'm not a big drinker or anything, but that keg just takes it up a notch.
You got beer on tap. I mean, it's all bets are off.
I think we all know that you enjoyed that quite a bit. Most of us did. The one person that didn't was Drew. I think it took him about 2 hours to get through half of a beer. Anyway,
I was trying to bring him some beer so he would start drinking. He started out with the Coke. We had to take that away from him, give him something more adult oriented, and he wasn't having it. Like you said, 2-3 hours. He drank about half a beer. He was done with it. Just kind of sat there at the table. And, it just ended Drew where he didn't really say much. Just kind of stares at his screen. I think we have to mention he was a little lost because this was the first year that he didn't have a cheat sheet, as he calls it, with him. So
yeah.
I'm sure you guys can get into more of that, though, when you do his interview.
Well, let me ask you this. Coming into the draft, did you have a set strategy on what you wanted to do?
I did. Last year I seemed to go, we all know what I did. I went infield heavy and then got a couple pitchers and then just kind of waited to get everything else filled, not towards the end. This year I kind of took the opposite approach, stacked the outfield, kind of waited to get my infield towards the end, although last year I ended up managing to come away with a lot better pitching staff than I did this year, so we'll see. The season's still young and plenty of pickups still to be made.
Yeah, I have to ask you this. The first guy that got nominated, or actually he was the second player, was Mike Trout. And I knew that I was going to be a big player for him. I think you anticipated being a big player for him. And he went for a lot of money, $73. And you were the one that bid him up to $72. How many mocks did you do that you did not have Trout in? Was he in pretty much every single one that you did?
He was in, almost 100% of the mocks I had. I went into this draft fully expecting, but I shouldn't say fully, I'll say I had a 90% confidence level that I was going to walk away with Mike Trout on my team. And lo and behold, you get some gunslinger in there, and I guess that's what Adam is, and he just wasn't afraid to, I knew he wasn't frugal with the money, but he wasn't afraid to throw anything around, and like you said, he ended up paying, $73 for him, and I wanted Troutlet, I guess Adam wanted him a little bit more than I did, so.
Yeah, when I get to talk to Adam, I really want to find out what he was willing to go to on Trout. And 73 is quite a bit, but I have a feeling that no matter what the dollar amount was, he would have gone up to $80 for him. So when Trout was off the board, it looks like you still didn't change your strategy of going heavy on the outfield. I mean, your first 4 hitters I think you took were outfielders, or that's pretty much where almost all of your budget went towards is Cargo, McCutchen, and Ryan Braun. Then you got Cespedes and Beltran in the outfield. Did you know that you wanted to come away with a strong outfield and a weaker infield? Is that something that you planned for?
Yeah, as far as hitting goes, I pretty much came away with what I was shooting for. Like I said, I would have liked to have Trout there, but I came in, and if these were the 3 players I was going to lock on my team, I was going to have Trout, Braun, and Cargo. I was like, I'm stacking the outfield this year. This is what I'm doing. Trout was, I think if you said the second nomination, so once he was gone, I had to move Kutch in there. So then I decided to go Kutch, Braun, and Cargo, and I knew I was getting those 3 after Trout was gone. And then it just kind of went, kind of winged it from there. But I knew that I could get a cheap infield towards the end, and I know a lot of my infielders aren't proven, but I'm pretty excited about what I came away with.
Yeah, I have to admit, for considering how cheap the infield went for, a lot of these guys were my targets for a fallback option, particularly Jose Abreu, Aaron Hill, and Aramis Ramirez. I thought all of those were solid buys at the end of the draft. Tell me your thoughts on Jose Abreu. Obviously, you went fairly high on him considering where we were at the point of the draft. There weren't a lot of players that were still going for $8, $9 at that point, and that's what it took to get Abreu. So you obviously got to be pretty high on him. What are your thoughts on what he's going to do this season?
I'm hoping for big things this year. I know he's been pretty highly touted, and as I mentioned, I had kind of planned to go outfield heavy, so I knew I was going to have to make sacrifices somewhere. So I pretty much it came down to did I want to go after Jose Abreu or Eric Hosmer as my starting first baseman. I like Hosmer, but I just feel like Abreu's, I feel like his ceiling was a little bit higher, so I decided to target him, and he did. I thought I would to get him for $2 or $3, but I guess Nick or somebody threw him out there a little bit thinner than I wanted, and he ended up going for, like you said, 8 or 9. But yeah, I'm pretty high in Abreu.
Yeah, I like Abreu a lot too, and with a new player, you never know for sure. So I thought you did a good thing there by getting Matt Adams as another first baseman that you can put in there in case it doesn't work out. I think between one of those two, you're going to have a good first baseman. I really kind of like both of them, honestly. Tell me about your pitching staff. You obviously waited a lot on your pitching staff, and looks like your de facto ace is going to be Masahiro Tanaka. You've also got Justin Masterson and Jared Weaver. Weaver, I think it went for a little too cheap this year. I think you got a good deal on him, and I like Masterson. All in all, considering how cheap you went, I kind of like the staff. Are you looking to acquire some pitching, though, or are you just going to focus on your hitting?
I obviously need more pitchers, but I'm not looking to acquire any just because I'm not really big into trading for pitching.
Yeah.
But I like those guys. Obviously the bad thing about it is there are obviously no number one options as far as my pitching goes. But those guys you mentioned, I think they'll be pretty. Actually, I don't really know about the Tanaka guy since he had pitched it all, but Masterson and Weaver, I think they'll be pretty good options this year. I think Tyson Ross could have a pretty good season. Other than that, though, I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's so many pitchers emerge every year.
Yeah.
Become waiver wire pickups, so there's plenty of pickups to improve the bullpen.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I think it was pretty early on in the draft you had said that you're not taking any closers this year. I look at your roster right now. I see Glenn Perkins, Casey Jansen, Jim Johnson, and Steve Cishek, 4 closers. What the heck happened?
Well, I think Nick said it best yesterday. Somebody threw Sergio Roma up there. I think it actually might have been me, and he ended up bidding on him, thinking somebody else was going to, one up the bid, and he ended up coming away with them. And so at that point, he said, well, I guess, I got to draft closers now. The same thing happened to me. I think I paid $3 on Glenn Perkins, just expecting somebody else to throw out another dollar, and all of a sudden I get stuck with them. So, at that point, you pretty much, if you're going to go in, you got to go all in. So here I am with 4 closers today.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting coming from you because I know that you're normally one of the teams in the league that loves your closers. So, but I know you're also not opposed to really changing things up and experimenting. So I could easily see you trading all 4 of these closers 2 weeks from now.
Oh, yeah, there's a... No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, out of all your guys, which one would you call your big sleeper pick? The one that you think a lot of people weren't really looking at drafting this year that's really going to come through?
Just pitching or hitting or just whatever?
Yeah, just any player on your roster.
I think Aaron Hill is going to have a pretty nice bounce back season. I think it was his wrist or something last year. He missed most of the season, but ever since he's been in Arizona, when you look at his average stats when he's played, he's been awesome. I think he was way too low in the second base rankings. I actually think he's going to be a top 5 second baseman this year, so I'm really high on Aaron Hill.
Yeah, I was talking to you about Aaron Hill after the draft, and he was another one of those guys that if I didn't get Matt Carpenter, who I was kind of targeting at second base, then he was going to be my fallback guy, and it may have been dangerous. I did end up getting Prada, who I'm not like ecstatic about, but I'm not upset with either. But I think if neither one of us had a second baseman at that time, we may have been bidding a little bit too high on Hill, maybe getting into the double-digit range. But I do like Aaron Hill a lot. I think he He's obviously got a lot of power for a second baseman. He's been hitting for an average the last couple of seasons, and he had a broken hand last year. It's not something that you really think is going to be something to worry about going, in the future. It's not like he's got a bad hammy that is a recurring injury. So I do like Aaron Hill. I think it's a good pick. Would you also think that he is probably your best value pick that you got, or is there somebody else that you think you got a really good price on?
What did I get him for? Do you know? I think it was $5. Is that right?
That sounds about right. While you're thinking about it.
You know what? I'll say Hill, but while you're looking that up, I also want to mention Cespedes. I got him for $14. It seems like everybody else is really low on him, at least at the actual draft party at the table. But I think he could turn out to be a pretty good. I think he's gonna have a bounce back campaign. I think he's gonna end up being really good for $14 that day.
Yeah, and I have to be honest, that was one where we clash on. I'm not a big Cespedes fan. I had him last year, and I did not enjoy him being on my team. But I even think that you may have stood up and done a little mini fist pump when you did that, made that pick. You were obviously pretty excited about it, and he was your fourth outfielder. It's not really a position of need, but he's obviously somebody that you wanted pretty badly. So why do you like him so much?
I don't know. He just seems like a fiery guy out there. It just seems like he doesn't take crap from anybody. I don't know. It's just a fiery individual. I really wanted to, get those three outfielders that I had, and then pair Cespedes with Puig and have the two Cubans in my utility spot, but that didn't. I only came with half of it, so it didn't work out to the fullest.
Yeah, I'm checking now, and Aaron Hill did go for $5. You got Cespedes for 14, like you mentioned. So we talked about your favorite picks. Which one of your picks would you say was your least favorite pick or your worst value?
Let's see. Well, I mean, looking back, I would have obviously not. I wouldn't have even toyed around with bidding for the closers, but I didn't overpay for any closers. But
you got $3 for each of your four closers. It's not bad.
Rather not have any. I had zero intention of ever drafting Carlos Beltran. I don't think it's going to be bad at all. I think it's going to be pretty good actually playing the Yankee Stadium. But he was one of those players, I just bid on, and it wasn't. I'm pretty sure it was below his average, and nobody bid on it again. So here he is, on my team as a starter.
All right, and I'm going to ask you this question. We obviously know that Trout is your number one answer, so just give me somebody else. What is a player, or name another player that you really wanted that you didn't come away with?
Trout's really the only one I can think of because, like I said, I planned on getting Trout, Cargo, and Ryan Braun all together, and I didn't get Trout, so I went in Bucks McCutcheon in there instead of Trout, but I really wasn't targeting.
What about a catcher? Were you hoping it was Jason Castro your plan all along to go $1 and get Castro, or is there somebody else you may have wanted?
Yeah, no, I planned to wait all along just to get $1 catcher. I wouldn't target any catcher. I just don't like paying more for a catcher.
Okay, and so I think we mentioned this briefly earlier on. What players on your roster are available for trade right now, and what positions are you looking to upgrade at?
Well, obviously pitching to upgrade, but like I said, I don't really trade for pitching. I plan to just upgrade the pitching throughout the season off the waiver wire. I'm really not looking for any. I don't want to separate that outfield, and my infield is. No one's going to want to trade for any of those guys, even though I think they're going to be, solid. I can understand why nobody would want to trade for them because they're all, smaller name guys, and that's proven. But
well, let me ask you this: would you entertain an offer, say, Yoenis Cespedes and Aramis Ramirez for a better third baseman, or are you? Aramis is great when he's healthy, so he's healthy right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It all just depends.
Depends on the actual deal, I guess.
I'm a little excited about. I hate having bench hitters, but at this point of the season, since the season's so weak or so away, and nothing's happened, I kind of pick up some assets. So I've got three bench hitters on my team right now, and got them all for $1. I think I got Brett Lawrie for $2. I'm excited to see but Lawrie actually pans out this year.
Yeah.
He was so talented, the past few seasons. If not, I cut him, and it's nothing off my back. I actually think Desmond Jennings for $1 could end up being a pretty solid deal, actually.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a problem to have three bench hitters, but all three of the guys that you have massive upside. Desmond Jennings, Brett Lawrie, and Matt Adams, all of them could really turn into being great values, especially for $1 only. It's going to be hard to cut those guys. You might have to try to swing a trade, and you've got some time to do that. I don't know what your plan's going to be yet, and you probably don't either. But I fully expect you to probably make multiple trades before the season starts. So, last player I wanted to ask you about, Ian Desmond, $28. Well, I guess I want to ask you about one more after this. Ian Desmond, $28. Is that more than you wanted to spend, or are you okay with that?
No, I mean that's definitely a little bit more than I wanted to spend. I was hoping I could get him for 21, 22, the lower 20s. But I mean, I'm fine paying a little extra than I needed to. I think obviously other than Hanley and Tulo, Desmond I think is a clear cut number 3 shortstop. And after that, I feel like there's a huge drop off in the position. So I'm pretty happy to come over with Desmond. And he's been one of the most consistent players actually the past 2 seasons. He doesn't miss games. Gives you all 5 categories. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited about having Ian Desmond.
And the last guy I wanted to ask you about, and this is probably for those that weren't at the draft, this was hands down the best draft moment from the 2014 season, and it's not Mike Trout. You would have thought that was it. That was number 2. Number 1 had to be, well, I think it's got to be Andrew McCutchen. That one that was just crazy. I can't remember who you were bidding. I can't remember who you were bidding against. I think it was Brandon.
I think it was Brandon,
And
yeah.
so I think you wanted him for low 40s. It started off really low, and the bidding really took a long time to climb up to the 40s, and then eventually to 50 for what he went for. But you'd already locked up your outfield pretty much. You'd already taken Cargo. You'd already taken Braun. You wanted McCutchen. You wanted to complete the top, 3 of the top 5 outfielders into your outfield. And I think you even flipped off the computer or something like that when McCutchen went for too much.
Yeah. What was the question?
Well, I was just gonna wonder what your thoughts were about that, because you obviously were pretty upset with Brandon, and that was one of those times when you were on those want to rage. You say, "I want to rage," and you just went a little crazy, and you threw out all the. Sometimes you just got to pay extra and get the players you want instead of trying to go values on guys you don't really care for.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I already lost out on Trout. I was willing to pay a little bit extra for McCutchen because after McCutchen, I just didn't feel like there was a clear cut, studded, proven outfielder out there left. So I had to do it. I think it was 50 or 51, but it's like you said. It's better to pay a couple extra for the guy you want than not pay the extra $3 and end up regretting it at the end. So I do think we need to touch just real briefly about just how crazy it was during the Mike Trout bidding because he gets thrown out there pretty much right off the bat. Everybody's bidding all on him. He starts hitting the high 50s and starts slowing down. He starts hitting 60s, slows down even more. I'm bidding back and forth. Obviously me and Adam are bidding. I don't know if anybody else is still in at this point, but that goes up to 69 and sits there for a couple seconds. Everyone's shouting. I know I'm shouting, and I was gonna let it go, but then you and maybe everybody else was saying the same thing. You're sitting there right next to me. You gonna have to push you around. You wasn't just egging me on. I didn't want to do it, so I said, bam, I had to hit down, go up to 70. Next thing I know, 73 sold to Adam for whatever, and that just. I'm pretty sure I swore directly after that. It was just, that just set the tone of an intense rambunctious draft right off the bat with that Mike Trout combination.
Yeah, when you went up to $70, and eventually you went to 72. When you went up to $70, did you think there's any way that Adam was going to raise you there?
I thought it was possible, but I felt like I had him for 70.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would have thought $70. The highest I ever saw Trout go for in any of the mocks was probably around 65 or so, and that may have even been me that did that. 63, 65 is about my range of how high I was willing to go. I think my last bid I got on him was 62. So when I saw you guys going for that, it was a little disheartening because I really wanted to bring Trout back to the team this year. It just wasn't going to happen, though. So, last thing, wanted to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think your team is? How happy are you with the draft, and what's your goal for this season?
So that's a two-parter?
Yeah,
All right. So how happy am I with the draft? I'm pretty confident, pretty happy with what I came away with. Obviously wanted Trout. I know we talked on that all podcast, didn't get him, but I kind of, other than that, I came away with the outfield I wanted. I'm really happy with my infield. I know most people might snub their nose at it, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. Pitching, obviously, definitely need improvement pitching. I think I usually have one of the worst staffs in the league, but I'm really not concerned about it since it's a long season, and every year I make there seems to be a couple pitches up there that you can pick up. I always seem to find them, so I'm not that concerned with my pitching. I think I'll be able to improve in it, so I'm pretty happy. I would have to say that I'm going to be a playoff team. I think I'm for sure a playoff team. As far as what's my goal for the season? Obviously it should be to win the title, but I'm going to be honest with you, Ryan. I just don't know if I have what it takes to ever win a title in baseball. I'm going to shoot straight with you right there.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said I don't know if I have what it takes to ever win a title in baseball.
I don't know about that.
I don't like looking up the starts and once you get to the playoffs, like the starts and the schedule and all that stuff. It's just, I don't know. Plus football always starts, a few weeks before baseball ends, and it just overlap. And
yeah. Well, my counter to that would be, if Drew can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's yeah.
All right.
But yeah, I fully expect to make the playoffs and compete though, for sure.
All right, yeah. You've never missed the baseball playoffs, so you're as safe as anybody to make the playoffs. And then when anybody gets in, anything can happen. We've seen Jacob make it to the semifinals before with a not so great team. We've seen Drew win a title, and he is not the best fantasy player of the last couple of years. And we've even
make the playoffs with an inactive team all season.
Yeah.
Week when Drew called him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've seen number one seeds fall early on, or I guess Nick wasn't a number one seed, but he has been upset the last couple of years and finished fifth. So anything can happen once you're in.
There you go.
Anything else you wanted to add before we are done with this?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all. Like I said, I had a great time at the draft. It was fun, and I look forward to a long and exciting season with everyone.
All right, sounds good. Be sure to tune in to the rest of the podcast as we unroll them.